And then something too, Danny, is that every single place I went felt more real than the last. So when I went to the white void space, I felt like that was way more real than the earthly realm. When I went to the black void space, that was definitely more real than the individualized experience. But this was something even more profound.
Crystal, hi. So thank you so much for being on our show today. So Crystal had a profound near-death experience during a complicated childbirth in the year 2000, and you were pronounced dead for 8 minutes. So today you're a Quantum Healing Regression Specialist, IBH Hypnotherapist, spiritual life coach, NLP and Consciousness Activator. And I don't want to give anything away, so why don't I give you a chance to talk about your NDE and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Danny. So in 2000, the biggest snow blizzard of the year in the Midwest, I had been in the hospital for 10 days in and out of the hospital on bed rest at that point for a very long time. I think it started at 17 weeks, and this I'm at 31 and a half weeks. So quite a while, just tired of being in there. And the night before I had baby, the doctors actually wanted to discharge me, but I had this really pressing feeling I should not leave the hospital. I should just make sure I'm here. So I asked to stay one more night and they allowed me to. And sure enough, the very next day, I went into active labor. By 8 p.m., the doctors were beginning to stress out because I'd been in labor since 11 a.m. And they went to go put a monitor on the baby's head to check its heartbeat. And it's literally a manual procedure. And I don't mean to get too detailed, but it has a little corkscrew on the end. And that's what they anchor into the baby's head to monitor their heartbeat. Well, as they were inserting this device, they must have nicked a vein somewhere with my womb or something. And little did they know, but all of my amniotic fluid started escaping the womb and going into my bloodstream. So within minutes, I felt as if I couldn't breathe. My lungs were filling up with fluid and I began to panic. So they sent the anesthesiologist into the room to give me an epidural. And then, long story short, as soon as they gave me the epidural, the doctor came running into the room and they said, "We have to get that baby out now. Its heartbeat is suddenly in the early, like low 50s." And with a little bit of pushback, the anesthesiologist went ahead and administered a medication that can create the adverse reaction to what they're trying to accomplish. So he gave me more medication, and sure enough, it did have an adverse reaction. So between the two, became a really deadly situation very quickly. And then for those viewers who've never heard of an amniotic fluid embolism, you have less than 5% chance of living through the first hour and another less than 5% chance of living through the night. And within minutes of being on the cesarean table, my organs were shutting down, my lungs were filling up to full capacity. I could feel the entire C-section beyond the initial incision. Sorry, guys. And but the reason why that's important is was paralyzed still, and and it felt like I had a cotton ball in my mouth. You could see that just came back, and my eyes were so dried out, I couldn't even open my eyes. So I'm laying there paralyzed, can't open my eyes, can't open my mouth to say, "Help me." And even though the anesthesiologist is right next to me asking, "Are you okay?" I could not even say, "No, I am not okay." I got the sensation of the elephant on the chest, and for the life of me, was trying my very dearest to take a breath in, but it seemed like all I could do was take a breath out. And the higher self of me knew this was the end of my life, to be honest with you. And yet it was so important. I hang on long enough to give birth to my daughter. Like, her being a live birth was the only purpose that I needed to serve in this moment. So I bared with the pain, and that was when I first had a self-hypnosis session. I just kind of tried my best to get myself through it, and being very calm and breathing very slowly and easily so that I could use my lung capacity to the fullest ability as long as I could. But at one point, and it was right around the time I heard her first cry, and I actually thought her first cry was the sound of a power drill. because it was very high pitched. I was like, "Ugh, what are they doing to me now?" But, it was around that time they said it's a girl. I was in my own body thinking, "Okay, so if I take a full breath in, let's see what happens." So I take a full breath in, I'm like, "Oh, there's no way that there's any air going into my lungs." So I was like, "Maybe if I take a full breath out, it would force air to come back in." So with all of my strength, I exhaled everything I had left in my chest, and that was that was the nail on the coffin's head, or you know what I mean, the head on the nail, and I knew immediately I am in deep trouble. I could not breathe in at all, and I suddenly was out of self-hypnosis and feeling the pain, and I'm not gonna go into that, but I started praying, "God, just allow me to leave my body." And I popped out of my head through the back of my, spinal cord area, and suddenly I'm looking down above the room, at the top of the room, looking at the doctors, and all of my awareness was focused on the baby next to me, who was getting honestly manhandled. I was like, "Why are they treating the baby that way?" I was panicking. I was like, "Please don't hurt her." And that's all I cared about. But yet I had this state of calmness where I knew she was gonna be okay too. And it was like a state of confusion, a state of awareness where I was just monitoring, but recognizing that is not how we're supposed to handle babies. But I knew she would still be okay at the same time. And what I wasn't aware of is that there was a resident physician in the room, and it's a university hospital, and he was teaching medical staff that day what to expect during a cesarean. So as he's standing there and they're just supposed to observe, he happened to recognize that I might be having an amniotic fluid embolism. And later he told me synchronicity. That same week, they went over what that actually is. And it's only one tiny paragraph in all of their medical books. And it happened to be that week they went over it. So it was
Oh,
fresh on
wow.
his mind. He called it out and they quickly intubated me. That little bit of intubation saved me because it preserved 15% lung capacity. Then, um, they claimed they revived me, and then they wheeled me up to ICU, and I'm in the elevator going up, but I'm observing the elevator from above my own body and all of the doctors with their green hats on. And then my awareness goes to a different part of the hospital where I'm noticing somebody in a completely different color of outfit, no surgical hat, coming from the nurses station, and they go to meet myself and the crew going up the elevator to the ICU, and they have a very specific elevator just for ICUs or at this hospital. So he went and met them at the elevator, and I watched him go from the nurse's station over to the elevator and get in, and he did not have a hat. And at this point, I was coded again. So by the time he entered the elevator, I was already gone again. They get me up to ICU and they're working on me to resuscitate me. And the whole time I'm focused on him and the anesthesiologist. And I could tell the anesthesiologist had let me say this, I could tap into the aura field around them, their spirit body. And when you bring all of your awareness to the spirit body, you can actually see what they're thinking and feeling and know what their intentions are. So I was very observant and I was paying very close attention to their spirit bodies, wondering, why are you guys so worried? I'm just fine. I'm right here and everything's going to be okay. Don't you know? It's fine. It's fine. And I could feel their passion as they were trying to revive me. They worked on me for 45 minutes and then gave up, just precursor. So I'm watching them from above the room. I'm in the same state of confusion. I don't understand what's going on. And I heard essentially the flatline machine having a siren sound. And all I knew is this sound is really annoying. And I kind of descended down the room and looked at it. And I felt like I was in a horizontal position or maybe like an orb, but I definitely felt like my head and my feet were all equal. And I came down the room and looked at that machine and realized what it was. I was like, oh, that person on the bed is gone. Okay. It did not bother me. And my awareness went back to the living spiritual beings in the room. And I was really tuned in and like, you guys, it's okay. And then I noticed someone met me above the room. And I'm not sure at what point she entered the space or even if she was there guiding me to go down. I can't remember that part. But I could tell she loved me so much. And I was just like, wow, you really love me. And she was hanging out with me and like, just really passionately holding space for me. Very, very like that's the best way to describe it. And as I'm talking to her telepathically, at one point I said, well, who are you? And she said, well, I'm the one who named you. I was like, oh, okay. You don't question things in that state of mind because you can't lie when you're speaking telepathically. So then all my awareness went to my mom, who was in the room, and she was looking out the window that night and it was blizzarding. So, and there was a street light not too far away from the window. So I could see the orange hue of the street light and the snow moving around, which I thought was very eerie. Like there was something very different about that light, which I can go into sometime. And I was really worried about my mom. I was like, well, not worried, but I was just like, why is she worried? Inquisitive, maybe curious. And the lady above the room said, that's who I'm here for. I said, oh, okay. So we're just watching this woman, my mom, and I tuned into my mom's aura field and she was saying, it's okay. She was actually, how do you say this? It's a feeling. So feelings are very complicated and I want to get this out right, but it was something along the lines of, okay, God, just come take her. Just come take her. Please come take her. And I was like, why is she asking for her daughter to be taken? I don't quite understand that. And she said, oh, it's okay, honey. That's just her body filter of, responding to the situation in its best way. She's in shock. It's okay. She doesn't know. She's divinely, spiritually wise and all loving, just like you and I. She was telling me it's okay. She's just surrendered. And that's actually a good place to be because she's completely surrendered and we're going to be able to do our work easier, essentially was the message I got back. And I was like, oh, okay, good. I don't want to, And then she said, like, a hypnotherapist, why don't you go into the light? And when you're in a hypnotherapy session, you have no choice but to go towards the light. So I kind of went inward. So if you can imagine being like a ball of energy or orb what is a fun way to look at it, even though some people would love to see themselves fully embodied. And if I looked down, I know I would have seen a full body, but I didn't care about what that looked like at the moment. So I feel like I was just an orb. And I looked inward and suddenly, I was just surrounded by this brilliant, bright white light. And the second thing I noticed was the sound, and it was so beautiful. And there was the sound of angels specifically to my left and to my right, like I still had ears in that form. And that's a little reassuring, just so y'all know, either way. Um, and I was healing. I was healing, standing here in this bright white light space, just fully healing and becoming one with it. And the longer I was resonating in that frequency, the more attuned and aligned I became one with that frequency. And I realized I am one here. And the angels are singing for me and to me, and they're rejoicing that I'm back. And like, but yet it doesn't feel like I ever left. Like I've always been here. And this feels wonderful. And after a really long time of just feeling healed, I said, okay. And my curiosity kind of started going again. And I said, there's got to be something else to do than just stand here. So I think I'm going to go left. So at the speed of thought, I started traveling left and I went super hyper speed fast, like the speed of thought. And I could even quantum leap what felt like very, very far distances. And as I'm traveling through this bright white light, I was like, this is really nice. This is really fun. And it feels great to be joyful and creative. And everything felt so present with your awareness. And as I'm at the front end of that awareness and full of joy, all I wanted to do was create. So my mind was like, you know what? There should be color here. And then boom, I co-created this most beautiful garden, which was I was fully immersed into it. And all of the petals and leaves were literally if I brought my awareness to the cell of the plant, I could see the sacred geometry pattern as the cell was emerging into this space. I could zoom all the way in. It's just wherever your awareness wants to go, your energy flows. And it wasn't like vivid, bright colors, even though it was. I love that description, but the one that resonates more with me is the colors were like energy, and the energy was emerging from the white void space, and it was like plasma energy. So instead of just red and orange and yellow, whatever, it was hues of darker reds to lighter reds to oranges, and it was um, like plasma energy. And it was very vibrant and moving and shifting and alive, and it held consciousness. And just like me, we were one. And I'm traveling down this path, and even though I know I'm what might be like perceived as standing or walking or drifting quickly along this path, I knew that the soil and the dirt and the rocks under my feet and surrounding the ground floor, the forest floor, wherever I was full of consciousness too. Even the rocks and the soil had consciousness. And I love that. And I'm just fully immersed in healing and very joyful, creating anything I wanted to see. At one point, I was like, there should be butterflies or fairies here or something. And all of a sudden, these beautiful little critters just started flying everywhere. And I was like, this is even from the earth. This is like from another planet, or it was my own co created ability to create that. So I get to this T intersection. So I'm going this way, get to a T intersection. If anybody wants to know the path to the place I went. And a lot of near death experiencers will commonly say, I chose to go left at the T intersection. And I think that is fascinating because a lot of those folks go to this university space with the columns and where they go to learn. I knew there was something over there, but I didn't care about that. All I wanted to do was go right. And I don't know why. I just unconsciously went right. And I go right. And so I come into this beautiful courtyard, and there's this man facing the other direction. And he kind of turns and looks towards me, and he beckons me to come over and sit with him. He's like, come sit with me. And I knew right away he must be the Jesus or someone, but I never thought to ask him. It didn't make any importance at all. All I knew is he loved me fully. And even in later years, when I go into meditation, I feel like he is the masculine energy within me, which is interesting. So I go to sit down with him, and I, again, speak telepathically. We made eye contact. And as soon as we did, it was like, I felt surged with his energy. And I held a very long conversation with him. And the whole time I felt these light codes or symbols just flying past us, like you would be feeling like if you're in a train and there's something flying past the windows. But the more I focused my awareness into his eyes, or the window, the seat, the window of the soul, I could see these light codes coming at me. And I'm like, I felt like they were being downloaded and into me. And I was beginning to understand the meaning of life, the purpose of life, everything that had to do with life, why we got to where we are today, that it's all about love, experiencing love in the absence of love. It's not about what happens to us in life. It's about how we respond. We need to respond with love and light selflessly. That's the key to manifestation. Like I was getting all these downloads, and I've come back talking about them ever since, but I wasn't paying attention to those downloads. They were just coming in, even though when I woke up from my coma, I remembered all of them. So my conversation with Jesus was very different and very individualized. So as I'm talking to him, he was saying things like, I love you so much. And you did a wonderful job. I'm so proud of you. You did such a great job. And I was like, "What are you talking about? I was naughty, I was rambunctious, I had a baby born out of wedlock, I'm not even 18 yet. What are you talking about?" And he was like, "It's okay. You're already forgiven. This is what grace is.
Wow.
The variance between pure love and knowing and the unknowing. That's grace. And right here, you're already blessed with full 100% grace." And I was like, "Oh, that feels so good." It still feels good 25 years later. And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And then he's I was like, "I was naughty as a kid." And he was like, "That's okay." And I know. And I was like, "Are you sure? Because I don't remember you being there." And he showed me the footprints in the sand poem. And I was like, "Oh, so you're trying to say that you were always carrying me all along." It's like, "You were not." And I was getting all sassy with him. I was like, "No one was there with me. I was alone." And he goes, "You're so funny. Don't you remember Coco?" And immediately he placed me into all these memories and scenes of my life where I was, at this point, this is my life review. If so, life reviews can be so joyful. Let me just say, I was perceiving the situation from the lens of being in the light bulb above the room, or the mirror in the vanity, or the door frame of the door, and I'm observing the scene, and I'm watching my 17-year-old self give comfort to my younger self who was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And my younger self was so excited to play with me. And she would get really excited, like, "Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to see you. And this is so much fun." And I remember about a couple years later, when this part of my NDE started to resurface, I went to my mom. I was like, "I got something to share with you." And our stories coincided exactly. This is all externally validated. And she was like, "Don't you remember when you were a child, your brother, who was learning to talk, called you Coco because he couldn't say crystal? And you would always come downstairs super excited. You would say, 'Coco came to play with me. I had so much fun.'" And that's what I was being shown. And Jesus said, see that love, that pure joy? That was me. I was the love within you outside of space time coming in and giving you comfort and joy. It's like, "Oh, that's how that works." And he's like, "That's like the subconscious nudge." And that's something that you can divinely do right now all the time, because time is honestly an illusion. And these are all downloads too. So I'm blending the things together. Time's an illusion, and everything that's orchestrated there is done beautifully in divine timing outside of space time, and it's done for us. Everything is done for us. Nothing is done to us. I was like, "Okay, this is fun. This, sorry, this makes life more joyful. Thank you." And he's like, "So do you want to go back to life?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. This is really fun here." And he said, "Well, let me show you what you'd be giving up if you do. Whether or not you decide to go back to life or not, you'll still have the opportunity of this." And he made me look down, and I was looking suddenly at these little babies that appeared out of nowhere, at the floor next to us in the courtyard. And keep in mind, there were very delicate flowers everywhere, very dense. So when I brought my awareness to it, it almost created like a clearing. And there was these 3 babies sitting there, and they were fully illuminated, and they were so cute, so beautiful. They didn't have a gender, just clothed with, like, white glistening gowns, and their eyes were so vibrant and full of life and love, and that made them glow even more. And then, there was this beautiful white golden hue light coming from behind them. And I was like, "Wow, that light is so beautiful." And that plays an important role in something intimate with me later. But later in life, I ended up having 3 babies. And I think it's these 3 babies, because one of them in this experience looked at me and it said, she was reading my mind. I was like, "I just want to pick you up. You're so cute." And I didn't realize that she was reading my mind, and she goes, "You can't just pick me up." I'm my own wise spiritual being. You can't just pick me up." And she got all sassy. I was like, "Oh." And it shocked me. And when it shocked me, I noticed something interesting happened to my awareness. So at this point, my awareness kind of popped outward. So if you can imagine this part, this white void space, being an infinite journey of your own inner self. I like to imagine that being the inside of the silver cord that people like to reference when they have an out of body experience. And I've never seen the silver cord, but that is the only thing that makes sense to me here. So maybe I was journeying through the silver cord and this baby just shocked me and I popped my awareness out. And now I had this sudden 360-degree, if not more, experience of looking outwardly into this black void. So as my awareness popped out, I became aware of this black void space. And I shouldn't even say I became aware. I became a state of being with what I call the black void. And I was just there, a state of being for what felt like billions of years. And it was definitely a very long, boring, like, retrospectively looking back, I was just it's the absence of even wanting to create, the absence of awareness, absolutely nothing. I call it the master reset or in the beginning. There was nothing. That's where I was. And after billions of years, quote unquote, it got boring. And I think it created a frequency imbalance. Like, this isn't right. This isn't right. And all of a sudden I felt a pop. And as I felt the pop, I became aware of myself. I'm like, oh, there I am. I'm not alone. I'm aware of myself. I'm like, wait a minute, that means there's something outside of me. So I went through that stage. And then after a long time, perhaps billions of more years, I really don't know because we're outside of space time, I said, okay, there should be something here. And of course, I thought, let's create light. Like, it's so funny how the Bible goes that direction, right? So it's like, there should be light here. That's literally what I thought. And I said, I used my willpower to create light. And out in front of me was this plasma lightning strike. So it was the same plasma energy that I just came back from, but I don't have any recollection of that at this point. And I saw this streak or this lightning streak going through out in front of me. And it was all these different hues and colors. And I was like, oh, wow, that's beautiful. I'm going to do that again. And I felt so full of life and joy. And I was so excited. And pretty soon I had a fireworks show going on. And then I was like, okay. And then stillness. I can create. I have the ability to create anything I want. This is fun. And then I sat there for another billions of years, it felt like. And then I was like, wait a minute, I've been here for billions of years. Like, I'm recognizing time. This is interesting. Wait a minute. Didn't I just have a lifetime? I did have a lifetime. And then everything flooded back. I began to remember my daughter, um, the situation. And I was like, I became, it was almost like I was just about to go into a moment of anxiety or have a frequency imbalance, is what I like to call it, of something negative. And just before I could begin to panic thoughts about that, I was just sucked and immediately placed somewhere else. And this space was artificially lit, like white room. And for some reason, I knew it was oval shaped. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm back in my body. I'm in the hospital room. Why is the room oval shaped in the ICU if that's where I'm at? Why is everybody staring at me? Why can't I see them? And what is this bright white light on my eyes? Because I can see nothing. It was so, so bright white, but it was artificial light. So now I was in the heaven space, the white space. It was pure bright white energy light. But here it was more like a light bulb, like it was artificial. And it felt, and then something too, Danny, is that every single place I went felt more real than the last. So when I went to the white void space, I felt like that was way more real than the earthly realm. when I went to the black void space, that was definitely more real than the individualized experience. But this was something even more profound.
Wow.
And I recognized quickly I'm tethered to a bed with what feels like my spinal cord. I felt like just literally tethered. I couldn't move. I felt like I had a body, but I didn't bring my awareness to look down to see if I have one. A lot of people ask. Um, and I knew there were a lot of people observing me, or something was observing me. And like, if you ever been into a haunted house where you feel like something's looking at you, it's like that times dial it up thousands. It was everything staring at you. You are what is the most interesting thing in the room. And this interdimensional angelic being now stepped forward by the left far foot of my bed. And as it stepped forward, my eyes recognized that it was this pure, bright white being. And it was so blinding white. I had to adjust my spiritual eyes to see it. And as I'm adjusting my spiritual eyes to see it, I notice its body comes more and more into form. And it does have like a facial feature. And I remember looking at her eyes, and they were his or her eyes. I don't know if it was a masculine or feminine presence. It didn't matter. I knew the eyes were like pure blue, lightest blue you can imagine. And I remember saying, "Look at me in the eyes so I can understand what's going on." And it was like, "I don't think that's a good idea." And I was like, "Just no, it's a good idea. Look at me in the eyes. I want to know what's going on." And it said, "I don't think that's a good idea." And I was like, "Please look at me in the eyes." And I commanded it. And it said, "Okay." And it brought its eyes were looking like where my halo would be, and it brought its eyes down to my eye level. And as soon as it did, I felt this surge of electric energy just surge me backwards. And I felt like the end of a lightsaber or a lightning bolt. And I couldn't even act this out because it was like light speed literally backwards, and I was just surged. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could see what she meant." But instead of resisting, I allowed it to flow through my whatever I was, my temple. And this is where I love just allowing that energy to flow through me today, and allow that to be who I represent even in front of you guys. So she or he looked at me in the eyes, and instantly I knew everything there is to possibly know. And I was in complete surrenderance, complete love, and it was the most divine light. And something really interesting happened when I began to go into conversation with it. I recognized it was every time I asked a question, it would simultaneously receive the question. And rather than answering the question to me with its own knowing, it had this yearning for the answer, energy coming out of its chakra system. And that's where angels get the illusion of wings. So, really, it was this closed circuit of energy that went out from the back of the chakra into the quantum space around it, where all of knowledge is actually stored. So if you can imagine God, source, love, energy being the quantum field, the space between you and I, it was yearning to understand the information and simultaneously bringing the information back in. And that's how angels are divine messengers of God. They're seeking the information from outside of them into the source field that's constantly shifting and moving and changing its knowledge based on our responses to what we experience in life as a universal collective, and as all of the energies are, like, we're just a small part of it. So and then I noticed its chakra system was fully illuminated. And when it wanted to know an answer, it would use its willpower, and it would say, "Okay, show me that." And it would simultaneously understand it. And then I also noticed its halo was fully illuminated, which I realized is just the crown chakra, the energy of the crown chakra. And I was like, "This is fun. I could do this for a long time." But at the moment, I was really concerned about that baby. I said, "Can you send me back?" And she said, "I'm sorry, I can't send you back there." And I started going through all the stages of death, grief, anger, you name it, I'm human. You have that human potential there too that is still there with you. So I was like, "No, you have to send me back." And I get to the bargaining stage and I'm like, "If you send me back, I'll do everything I can to be the most loving mother or for that baby." And at this point, she had just shown me too that when you transcend to the next place, she was encouraging me to go with her. And she was saying, it's going to be better for your baby to be with me, to have you be with me here, because you're going to do more for your baby in heaven than you ever can on earth. And I was like, I don't like that answer. I want to be the mother who gives that baby love, and I want to show it love. And it was like, you gotta she was trying to say, "You gotta quit being selfish, like, you're wanting to go back for selfish reasons." And she goes, "You can do more for that baby here, let me show you." And she allowed me to be the seeds within a dandelion, and she took me forward to my daughter being 3 or 4 years old and blowing the dandelion, and I got to be the seeds, blowing into the wind that brought the child joy and love. And then I got to Um, then I was brought to a scene where I was the flower, and I also was blooming with the sacred geometry pattern and showing my baby how loving I am for it. And the baby recognized that and went to go pick the flower. And by the way, this child ended up picking flowers constantly. Um, and then I was the subconscious nudge in the quantum field that would come into the energy field of somebody else and to divinely, in perfect timing, give my child love from a perspective where I wouldn't have been able to because I wasn't even present if I would have been back on earth. This is a subconscious nudge through the lens of someone else. And she was like, "See, you can do so much more for your baby here with love than you ever can there." And I said, "I know, I believe you, but I want that baby to have a mother to hold it. I want that baby to have experiences in life, having a loving mother looking at it and holding it." And she goes, "Now we're talking. Now you're being selfless. You're wanting this with love and light. I have to respond to this." So I said, "Well, what can we do?" And she was like, "Well, we can't send you back there because your body is wasted." And I said, "Well, fix it." And she goes, "Oh, it's not that easy. I have to get permission." And I said, "Well, then get the permission. Go get the permission." And something very unique and odd happened that I'll never forget. She goes, "Okay, I'll see what I can do." And her eye contact left my eyes and they went back to blue as she looked up to my halo. And she went to my halo to get permission. So it's like there's something there that I'm still trying to understand and dissect. But she looked to my halo. And then when she got the permission, she took kind of a step forward and she was holding this golden pine cone. And it was literally also with the light of it was creating its own sacred geometry pattern. It was spiraling in. And it's like the ancient Sumerian text where you have the Anunnaki with the, or whatever it is, with the black box and the golden pine cone. That's the only thing I can explain. This being took a step forward, holding this pine cone coming out my left ear area and waved it. And just as she did, I felt the breath of God literally being placed back into my physical body on earth. And I felt my whole body just elevate off the bed and come back down. And as it came back down, I realized I can't open my eyes. I must be in a coma. And I started to learn how to breathe with the ventilation machine that was intubated. And that's the whole story.
Wow, so much to unpack here. And I was wondering if you could share that little story about that female figure that you mentioned at the beginning of your experience that you seem to have found again in a picture, if I understand correctly.
So, okay, it's a great question. 6 months after I came back to life, and I had no voice for the first year. I had vocal cord trauma from being on the intubated for so long. So I went to stay the night at my mom's house. She was very instrumental during that first year of life because I was disabled. And I came down the stairs and she was working on genealogy. And there was this black and white photo of these girls sitting on a brick wall, sitting on her computer screen. And immediately my eyes went to the woman in the middle who was probably in their 20s or 30s. And I said, I met her. I met her. And I was so excited. I never, that's the connection, that's who she is. And my mom interrupted and she's like, you didn't meet her. There's no way. And I got a notebook out and I was like, I wrote down, she said that she's the one who named me. And I didn't know what that meant. And so my mom, who doesn't see the notebook yet, proceeds to say, there's no way you could have met her because the last time I saw her was before you were even born. And I showed her. And then my mom had a mental breakdown, just started crying and sobbing. And I just let her gain her recompose there. And after a minute, she was like, "Ah, how did you know?" I was like, well, she told me. She was the one who named me. And she said, well, the truth of the matter is, I went to go see her before you were born. I told her I was having a boy. I showed her my ultrasounds. Ultrasounds were new in the 80s, the early 80s. And I was really excited I was having a boy. And this is her grandmother. And she goes, no, honey, you're going to have a girl and you're going to name her Crystal Faith because she's going to have pure faith in this world. And so when I came out a girl and my mom had no names picked out, of course, she snags the only one she can think of. And she names me that. And she said the reason why she was crying was because her grandma used to always tell her, you can't take someone else's credit, sweetheart. You got to give credit where it's deserved or where it's earned. And that was a life lesson that her grandma still wanted to make sure she understood. And I think that's why she came into my experience.
Yeah, how about that? That's brilliant. Thank
Mhm.
you for sharing. Another very interesting point that you raised is that so you had to ask for permission, to come back. So it sounded like you were quite persuasive and persistent, even in the afterlife, and it almost feels as if maybe if you didn't ask, you wouldn't be here today. So, I guess that begs the question. So are we allowed, even in the afterlife or during these thresholds, so to speak, to ask what we feel is rightfully ours?
So one of the messages I was told was, um, I specifically asked Jesus in the garden with the three babies, okay, if I go back to earth, what's the correct religion here? And I'm gonna go to off tangent, I'm coming back in. And he said, don't you know all paths go to the same place? It's about what you choose to do, where you choose to bring your awareness to. Everything's a constant state of being, but yet everything's happening for you and nothing is happening to you. So it doesn't matter if you go now or you go later, or if these babies are born now or born later, it's all going to happen anyway. It's divinely orchestrated. It just depends on how you want to co-create the space. And he said, you co-create on earth just like you do here in heaven. You co-create here in heaven just like you did back on earth. It's the same thing. Has to be done, which I've come to knowing, with love and light and selflessly. So if you created intention and you step into that intention as if it's your truth already, and you're just like, I'm going to do it. This is me already. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel so full of gratitude and love that I already got this. I just waiting for my physical body to experience it. But I know the energy's there. Wait for the energy to come match you and meet with you, and then you'll be able to manifest. But sorry, I kind of went full circle here. I'm trying to get it full back to full circle. So we do have some limiting capacities, and I think it's just to the construct of the matrix we're in and the fact that we're in this space with other co-creators. But once we recognize our real willpower, then we can use our willpower to dial up what we want in life. And as long as you remove any limiting beliefs that's stopping you or being an obstacle or a block for you, remove the limiting beliefs and dial up your willpower, which is why I love my field of doing hypnotherapy and stuff. Um, and you can override that illusion of limited free will. So it all goes hand in hand. It's it's more willpower and the ability to remove the limiting belief more than it is just free will.
Makes sense. Thank you, Crystal. Yeah, that's brilliant. Another thing which I love about NDE stories, and you mentioned it earlier, is that feeling of grace that many NDErs get to experience, and they're able to bring back and incarnate, and obviously lead by examples. But as I'm sure you know, we don't often feel that way, when when we look around, if we look at the geopolitical situation. So often, yeah, I understand that people are going through some tough times and they have to go through their own challenges. So that feeling of grace is not always so obvious. So my question to you would be, what can people do, if anything, to maybe try and reconnect to that feeling?
That's a good question, and I have an idea of how to explain this. I've never used this one before. But if you can imagine everything in spectrums, grace is a spectrum. So if you got pure love and knowing how to do something, and then what I call evil is the knowing of what you need to do, but choosing to do the wrong, or maybe it's ignorance of whatever limiting belief you're holding on to, and ignorance in a positive way, not necessarily negative. So it's just the absence of knowing. So if there's a spectrum again, and the spectrum is love and light on one side, where you know and you feel all loving and light. And then there's the absence of love. And over here, you have limiting beliefs, things that hold you down and not recognize your real power, your real true power that you have as a divine creator. And when you have grace, it's the variance of that, where the sovereign, divine, loving God set all that energy around you, God, source, love, energy says, I give you grace for whatever variance of whatever difference of variance you have to understanding what this is. And it's through that that you can actually shift your awareness to get back to that state of grace, get back to removing your limiting beliefs, and step into your truth power by staying over here and just perceiving whatever it is over here with love and light. And another analogy I like is, if you can imagine for a second that we're all one, we're one universal collective, and the purpose of life is to experience life, right? But we're doing it together as a limit, as one universal collective. So if you put the point of perception or perspective out in front of you, perspective of any particular topic, and it could be something silly like McDonald's. Everybody around the world knows what McDonald's is. Let's just look at the concept of McDonald's. Then if you take every human being that's on the planet, you could probably put them in one varying degree from another about how they feel about a certain part about McDonald's. So if I talk about McDonald's hamburger meat, don't mean to touch anyone's sore subjects here, but we're all going to carry a varying perspective of what we feel about McDonald's hamburger meat. And it's through that exhaustive experiencing McDonald's hamburger meat, sorry, McDonald's, that we're all going to perceive it from a different perspective based on the experiences we brought to the moment for that moment of perspective. And that's the same thing with everything in life, every single situation. Everybody's going to see something from a different perspective as you. And the way we're going to finally be able to overcome um, fear, war, politics, is just to appreciate where somebody is on that spectrum. Like, you know what? I am so grateful I am where I am on that spectrum for what I believe in. And I appreciate that they're volunteering and holding the baton to be the person who's holding that perspective. And it doesn't have to be me. I get the free will, I get the choice of where I want to be on this spectrum. And I'm so grateful it is just where I am right now. And if something comes into your awareness and kind of gives you that frequency and balance that, hey, pay attention to this, then that's when you're supposed to change where your angle is on that spectrum so that you can change the experiences for a future perspective for something else.
Thank you, Krista, for that. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, so let's talk about integration. So we know that NDEs often have a very long and difficult integration. So my question to you would be whether you came out of the experience immediately transformed, or was it more like a gradual process of integration?
I would say it was immediate transformation, on a on a limited capacity. And I've been scaffolding and layering up. And what puts me forward on that trajectory in like quick little lightning speeds is when I spend a lot of time focusing on my near death experience or things in this perspective, from this point of view. So when I first came back, I was not even 18 years old. I knew I was going to be okay. I was like, why are you guys so worried? I'm fine. Why are you praying over my bed? Go away. I'm fine. Like, I knew I was going to be okay. You come back with a sense of knowing. And then I was extremely present with everything I did. And the more present I was, the more joyful life was. And just remained in that immediate state of now, feeling joy. And that allowed me to manifest a really good life for myself. And um, I understood how to manifest at a very young age. Yes, I ran into obstacles. I'm human. This is a body filter. It's not perfect. But the more we relax our body filter and just allow the divine source of God source love energy to flow through our temple, the more we can be in alignment with what it needs us to be doing on this planet. And I came back with that knowing, and I've always tried to build that ability. I've been derailed a few times, but it was always to serve a greater purpose. It was like a pendulum swing. So if I get dipped into my ego and I go deep into my ego, I go that much further spiritually on the other side. So it's all happening for me. It's all perfectly orchestrated. And I've recognized that all along. It's just every time that pendulum swings, I raise the bar and I level up more and more.
Yeah, definitely. Would you have any recommendations for NDErs to help with their integration process?
Oh, there's so many. First thing is stop watching near death experience stories until you've honed in on your own. I would outline what you remember and do bullets and feelings that you had behind each scene. The feeling is what's going to anchor you and get you back into that experience fastest. And then hold off on watching these videos until you fully remember yours. If you guys need more help, there's a lot of healers out there who are willing to help you tap into that remembrance and build up your own story, and don't dilute it with um, other people's stories, because the way you felt and the way you experienced your experience is going to be uniquely divinely for you, and to help you build your skills so that you can be the divine healer that you have within you, that's going to later be called in to help other people. Because I fully believe if you had a near death experience, you will take the calling to heal somebody or someone's on a very intimate spiritual level later in your life trajectory. So it's really important to preserve that core knowledge, and then don't do it alone. So there's lots of support groups out there, and ions is the, once I learned about ions, I had my NDE 8 years before. Um, so I learned about ions in 2008, and then I spiraled. I was like, this is so fun. Like, I couldn't get enough of it. I was drinking off the fire hose on everything I needed to know, but I had an 8-year window. I don't think that's necessary today. But I would say minimally 6 to 12 months of um, time where you're spending going inward and reflecting to get your organic thoughts out. Um, Other things is, while listening to stories for external validation are great, I would be seeking yourself and getting your external validations from within. So, one of the things I love to do is say in the morning, create an intention time. And it can be something like, okay, God, source, love, energy, thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to be here, and allow God, source, love, energy to flow through my temple today. Allow me to do what allow me to allow you to work through me so I can do your good work today and be your hands and feet. Like, create that flow of energy. Once the energy is flowing, you're going to want to set an intention. And that intention might simply be, Today, I would like more direction and clarity about this part of my NDE. I remember I was talking to Jesus in the garden. Tell me, show me more insights about what that was. Tell me, show me what those light codes were that I was seeing coming at me. Whatever it is that you want to know more about, just bring your attention there and say, thank you, thank you, thank you for showing me that today and in the days to come. And hold on to that as your daily intention until you've been shown, and recognize that you're going to see this through synchronicity, signs, random things that are happening throughout the day. It's not just angel numbers. It might be a t-shirt at Target that says just the right thing. You never know. But God will, if you go in and you're allowing God to flow through you, and you're going into your day with the intention for God to show you something, and then you set yourself back and you just observe as God is sourcing through you that day, there is no way you will not see the synchronicities and signs to knowing what it is that you needed to know about that.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from your NDE?
It's the same as everybody. It's all about love. It's all about love and the absence of love. Um, and if you could level up from love, it would just be gratitude, being so grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your view of God these days?
I always say God, source, love, energy. It is the quantum space around us that holds space for our sacred geometry patterns of our own selves to emerge into. And it's the energy within us that's divinely emerging into the physical realm behind the sacred geometry pattern
And why do you think God made us?
to experience love in the absence of love. God wants to understand love fully. And I feel like it's just a big experiment, and we should be having fun with this. This is a play. This should be fun. And the more love and light we bring to it and more joy we bring to it, the more it's going to go in our favor. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because this is one of the questions I get to ask to most of my guests, and I quite liked earlier on you mentioned that you spent like billions of years in this dark space, almost getting bored. And actually, someone has used that as an answer. Maybe God was getting a little bored about being, in this eternal bliss by himself, so he started to make us as a little. Projections of himself to experience, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
himself through us, through plants, through rocks, and everything else. So yeah, I love that. That's great, Chris. So well, we've been talking for almost an hour. I have one last question for you that I normally like to finish these conversations with, and you kind of touched on a little bit already. So perhaps you can elaborate on this. What's the meaning of life?
To experience love and to be appreciative and grateful for the the variance of the grace within it, and to experience joy behind it, and to be fully present and be co-creating it.
I love that. Well, I don't suppose you have any party messages you would like to leave the audience with today?
I have been focusing on just being very present, joyful, and allowing things to happen for me. And if I know that's an ongoing message that a lot of us in the Universal Collective are working on right now, like surrenderance and trust. And I'm I'm a little bit of an intuitive too, but I would say the next thing that we're going to be working on as a Universal Collective is temperance, patience, as the rest of us come up to surface and we all kind of catch up to one another. So temperance is going to be one of the next major core feelings that we're going to be experiencing as a Universal Collective.
Okay. Would you have any advice for all of us if we were to try and perhaps learn to surrender a little bit more, to be a bit more temperamental and a bit more patient?
I would go back to the meditation of allow me to allow you to work through me so I could be your hands and feet today, and just set the intention that God works through you and everything's being done for you outside of space time. If you hold a passion or desire for anything at any point of your trajectory in life, you have the full capacity to bring that light or energy essence within you to life. So like when I was younger, I wanted to be an archaeologist. Well, now what am I doing? I'm studying hieroglyphics and going to Peru. I had I had a desire to be a detective when I got older. So now what I'm doing, I'm researching, like, this is fun. I get to be a detective finally. So whatever it is that you held within you, that desire, it never went away. It's still inside of you, ready to ignite and come to life again. Just allow that to be, and that will be your creative force, the God source love energy within you, emerging with the work that you were called to do before you were even born.
Yeah, well said. Crystal, thank you so much again for everything. It's been a wonderful conversation. And yeah, I wish you all the best. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. Thank you for your
Okay.
work.
Hi there. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the Ernst community, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share with the ones you love. New episodes are out each Friday. Until then, enjoy the stream we all call life and leave the love you wish to see in the world. Bye for now.